Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Ward King, also known as the Stigma Crusher. And here at this channel, we deal with issues of mental health and mental illness from my twin perspectives as a person with lived experience of bipolar 2 disorder, as well as a person with a PhD in experimental psychology. If that sounds like your jam, you are in the right place. I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified each and every week when I post, you could hit that notifications bell. It's a notifications bell. Hit the notifications bell as well so you'll know each week when I do post. Well, with that, I guess it is time to start stigma crushing for this week. Okay, guys, so can you believe it has been a year since this whole pandemic thing started? Crazy, right? Oh, and while we are at it, it is just insane, all the measures that they are trying to take to get everybody well and healthy. I mean, I know vaccines are scary, but just insane to think that, all of the stuff that's going into this. But I kind of get it, because it seems like government is being super bipolar these days. It's either one thing or it's the other thing, and it can't be anything in between. So bipolar, it's ridiculous. If you have been here for a while, or even if you've just come in, I'm sure you're seeing what I'm doing there. I'm not being super subtle. I am using some of the words that are popular, but also medical words to describe psychiatric disorders that we use in everyday speech, thrown away like they're nothing. Except the only problem is that they're not nothing. Whenever I hear these words, and I've been hearing them a lot lately, I don't know if I'm overly sensitized or what, but whenever I hear those words, I hear people that are using stigmatizing language, probably not on purpose, probably not because they're actually wanting to stigmatize mental illness. But the use of the language from people high up in the chains and low down in the chains just tells me that the anti-stigma movement has not been quite so successful yet. I haven't crushed stigma enough times, apparently, because people are still doing it without even thinking. And that's something I'd like to see stop. So the word crazy is not the clinical word, but it's possibly the most interesting in terms of its etymology, where it's come from, how it's gotten where it's gotten. Suffice it to say that when it started out, it was only referring to diseased or sickly around the end of the 15th century. And it very quickly morphed, actually. By 1610, it was meant to mean deranged or mental defect. And so it was a really quick evolution of that one, of crazy, from diseased and sickly to all the way to, what do we have it here as? Deranged, demented, or of unsound mind, or behaving as so, referring to people with mental illness or those behaving as such. The word crazy stuck with that for quite some time, for several centuries. And there seemed to be a little bit of an evolution in the meaning of the word when jazz started using it. Jazz culture started using crazy as meaning like smoothed and cool and exciting. And it became something that was much more positive. But it still retained the meaning of it being deranged or mentally unsound. And that's the meaning that it most often appears under today. But as you can see, it's quite easy for words to kind of flip around and switch their focus. And so the word crazy these days can be seen to mean all kinds of things. So when I said at the beginning that, it's crazy how the pandemic's been happening for a year now, crazy there does not mean, obviously, having a mental health issue. Crazy there means, wow, it's unbelievable, which is not something that you would have, expected from the etymology of the word. But I bet you if you can think of a dozen sentences with the word crazy in them, you can think of almost a dozen meanings of that word. But of course, they do all at kind of some base level imply otherness, so something that's not expected, not accepted, and then also something that's potentially not positive. And that's where the problem comes in this word that is so innocently not meaning a person of mental defect or a person with a mental illness, but it's still using that word still gives those not so positive connotations. The next word, insane, another 16th century word. Well, I guess this one's 16th century. And it is a medical and a legal term, or at least it has been. It actually in a lot of jurisdictions remains as a medical and both legal term. And I'll read to you exactly what it says in terms of what was its etymology. So it's from Latin, which means in, not, and sanus means healthy. So it literally just meant not healthy. And then it came to mean a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction, seriously mentally ill. It can also mean shocking or outrageous. So again, that last one there, just like with crazy, which is, can be taken now as not being a mental health word, shocking and outrageous for insane. So that kind of goes with, isn't it just so insane the way that they're treating the vaccination effort? So that's shocking or outrageous. The third word I chose was bipolar for obvious reasons. And it comes from Latin as well. So bi poles, meaning two poles, as we've discussed earlier. And this one came about only in 1957, so this isn't a centuries-old word. Well, the word itself may be, but it's not its usage anyway. And it can be traced to Carl Leonhard, the psychiatrist, who was one of the folks that was instrumental in figuring out and diagnosing bipolar disorder. And it literally means of or relating to manic depressive illness, or possibly having two poles. And yet, when we use it, so the example I gave where I said that government's being so bipolar, it's either one thing or it's another, it's nothing in between. I was talking about that bipolar, two poles. But it's also, of course, referring to the manic depression kind of poles that we hear about with bipolar disorder. And it has that connotation of being insane. And so you can see they all kind of feed in together. Basically, and you could pick any mental health related word that you want. Depressed, schizo, OCD are all good ones that we use all the time in insensitive ways that are not referring to their mental health connotations and yet are. But basically what I'm arguing here, and I'm not the first to argue it, is that whenever you are using a mental health related word that's stigmatizing, there is another adjective that you mean. So when you're saying, oh, wow, it's crazy that the pandemic has happened, you could be coming up with a different adjective instead of crazy. So it's unprecedented. It's confusing. It's difficult to believe. Those are all really probably what you mean when you say, isn't it crazy that we have this pandemic? And it does not continue to stigmatize people with mental illness. So this would fit for any of the examples I've given. Think to yourself, if you are using the word bipolar to discuss government, what are you really meaning? Are you really meaning that they can't make up their mind? Or that they're so rigid between one or another? There's something else that you're meaning, and you could choose a different word. And that goes for everyone in all kind of walks of life and all kinds of statements. And things that are used inappropriately. I can actually give you my own example this week in a meeting, referring to something that people were pressing me on. Well, can you get this done? And can you do this? Can you do that? And can you take this into consideration? And I said, look, I'm not going to kill myself over it. And as soon as the words had exited my mouth, I was like, oh, stigma crusher. You're going to have to stigma crush yourself. And so in the very next sentence, I apologized for the inappropriate use of the word, stated what I meant to say instead, which at that time was, I'm not going to do something that's over and above what needs to be done. And we moved on from it. And we're able to discuss it at the end of the meeting as well, which was a great stigma crushing moment. Everyone has these things that can fall out of their mouths at the most inopportune times. But the important part is to be able to address it in that instance, so that everyone was in the meeting realized it was inappropriate and why, and what we could do about it. The last thing I want to do here is one that's maybe less popular. I want to reclaim some of these words for myself. And so absolutely 100% using those words inappropriately, out of context, in random sentences, always can be done differently without using stigmatizing word language. But I want to be able to say to you, actually, I am crazy. I'm the crazy one in the room. I want to be able to say that. And it's in that context of reclaiming the word for myself. You see, it's had in my own personal history, it's had quite a difficult relation. I've had a difficult relationship with words like crazy and insane. And they've really gotten me down. I have self-stigmatized using them. I have been said, yeah, you are insane, Jessica. Jessica, you are insane. You're nothing but a crazy person. You're nothing but a psycho. And they were harmful to me. And now I'd like to say, no, you know what? I claim this word. I claim it as my own. It has no power over me anymore. You can use it all you want, but it's not going to hurt me. That's what I want to say. And I come by this honestly. So I'm also a lesbian woman. And so in the LGBTQ2S positive movement, there is that Q that's in there. LGBTQ. The Q is queer. Queer was used as a defamatory statement. It was used as an insult. It was thrown at folks. And still is used as an insult and thrown at folks. But my community has reclaimed it and said, you know what, we are queer. We are here. We're queer. And this is our word. And no matter what you want to do with it, it has no more power for you. And that's been very successful for a lot of folks who, for whatever reason, don't identify as maybe lesbian, gay, bisexual, but they identify still within that community, which is neither here nor there for the moment. But it kind of is, insofar as I want to reclaim those words that have caused me so much pain and be able to apply them to myself and say, yep, absolutely, I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder, but I'm not going to let it hurt me. My son came home the other day, and he came home with the famous old statement, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And I thought to myself, do I stigma crush him here? Because of course names do hurt. Words do hurt very, very, very deeply. And so for me, being able to claim those ones back has been something positive and something that's emancipatory almost for me. And so it's not always positive for some folks. Some folks don't like to hear the term crazy in any context, reclaimed or not. And that's something that our community of people with mental health issues and mental illness will have to struggle through and figure out, what's appropriate. Terminology changes all the time. What's appropriate changes all the time. It went from manic depression to bipolar disorder, and some people were like, wait, I got whiplash. How did that happen? And so these things will continue to evolve, and I'll continue to evolve with them. Remember, though, when I'm reclaiming words for myself, they are words that I can apply to myself, but they are not words that I can apply to you. And they are certainly not words that you can apply to me. When I've reclaimed them, these stigmatizing, damaging words, I can apply them to myself. And that happens as well with my cousins in the queer community who can say that they are queer, but you cannot. Racial categories often go this way as well. There may be words for different races or different racial categories that the people themselves can actually apply to themselves, but the rest of us cannot. And so that's something that's important to say and to be said. And no matter what you're saying about mental illness or using language that is indicative of mental illness, it's always important to use the theory of person first language. So that I am a person with bipolar 2 disorder. I am a person with depression. I'm a person with any medical mental illness. That is a better way to say it than a bipolar person or a depressed person. And certainly much better than something like someone who's OCD. People are not their illnesses. They potentially have their illnesses. And again, this kind of language is evolving and changing. People have different preferences. When in doubt, ask a person how they would like to be referred to. It's always a good practice, and it can open up a conversation about stigma and about the way a person identifies that can be quite enlightening. So I would love to hear what you think of all of this. What do you think of the idea of reclaiming words so that you can remove that power, that negative power that they have or had over you? Is that something that you subscribe to? Not maybe so much. I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. Also, have you had any luck with rooting out some of those sayings or statements that we have, like crazy and bipolar and insane, in your own speech or in that of people around you? Are you really sensitive to it too? Do you hear it all the time? I'd love to hear anything you've got to share in those comments down below. And for that, I will leave it for another week. So take care, everybody, and stay safe. Bye. Stigma Crusher.